Hello, everyone, and welcome to the newly revived Switch On podcast. I'm your host, Ben Lamoureux, and I'm joined by two newcomers to the show. First, we have Aric Sweeney, who's actually the former editor-in-chief here at Nintendo Enthusiast, and he continues to contribute as a writer now when he has time. Welcome to the show, Aric.
Hey everyone, I'm stoked to be here and really happy to talk E3 because I felt like Nintendo had a particularly strong year this year, so let's do it.
Awesome. We're happy to have you. And we also have Greg Vargas here today. So he writes for Nintendo Enthusiast as well as PC Invasion, and he helps with a lot of social media stuff across the network. Welcome aboard, Greg.
Hey, what's going on? And I'm a little embarrassed to say this is the first time that I've ever heard your name be pronounced out loud, so it's good to know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, don't worry, no one can pronounce it. So all three of us had the privilege of going to E3 last month, and we got to go hands-on with a lot of the games that Nintendo showed off. So we've been pretty busy in the aftermath, but we finally have a little time to sit down and talk about all the exciting things that we saw and did that week. So first off, let's just go ahead and recap that huge Nintendo Direct. Right before the show floor opened, we got treated to all those awesome games. You guys ready to dive in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to start this section off with a question. Was this the most exciting Nintendo Direct we've seen yet? And as a follow-up, what was the most hype part? Let me start with you, Aric.
Okay, so I'll just compare this year to recent years in terms of Nintendo's Direct because I felt like since they came out with the Switch, the first year the Switch came out, that Direct for E3 was kind of like they were showing what they had for the year, giving a hint to what was coming, but they didn't have much. And then last year was really like pegged on Smash Brothers. It's like they didn't have Smash. That year would have been kind of a failure in my opinion. So this year it did two things. It reinforced that this year is really strong with Link's Awakening and Pokémon and Astral Chain and things like that. But then it also gave us a glimpse into the future. Like we get Animal Crossing next year. We also get Metroid, which we already know. They didn't mention, but that's looming in the background. You know what I mean?
Eventually.
So I felt like this year it's like they kind of like set up 2019 and also reinforced what they have next year. So I felt like it was a success overall.
Sure. How about you, Greg?
It's weird. Yeah, it was one of the most exciting, but when I replay the previous years back in my mind, I still can't, one of the things that I remember most in previous E3 happenings for Nintendo was the Iwata, Miyamoto, Reggie Muppet year. And I don't know why.
God, yeah.
I don't know why that stands out so much in my head. I remember, driving down during that time, and this is when I lived in California, and I could, just drive down to LA and attend E3. And I remember that year pulling over in my car and getting chills and just laughing and enjoying, what a production it was. And maybe it was because the Treehouse events were still new. I don't know. But I still felt like this year, the pacing for it, the reveals, that's the thing that I find Nintendo keeps doing well is making sure that you're tuning in for a reason. And, those reasons could be, No More Heroes 3 or more Link's Awakening or showing more that wasn't shown from other third-party developers. Was it the best so far? I don't think so. But, I still hold it pretty high up there and in pretty high regard in terms of the excitement behind it and keeping the surprises close to the chest before actually, firing them off in succession like they did.
Yeah, for sure. It's hard to... They've had so many great presentations. It's hard to really point at just one and say, well, obviously that's the best. But I feel like 2019 really delivered like one of the most packed and diverse ones. Like you said, the pacing was great. It was just announcement after announcement after announcement. And they started it off, I think it was Doug Bowser said something like, we're going to show the world that we have games for all types of players. And I feel like they really delivered on that, where, they've got party games, they've got RPGs, they've got survival horror, they've got superhero games and beat-em-ups, and just like, there really was something for everyone. And then throughout it, they put in a few of these just really big hype moments where it's like, stuff that a few years ago we'd only dream about. And if someone put it on an E3 leak list, like, oh, Banjo and Smash, like, no one would have believed it, not that many years ago. So I felt it had this great balance of something for everyone and also some dream come true moments for just, really big fans of certain franchises.
Yeah, it really had that ups and downs of a roller coaster ride that I wanted to be on, and it kept the excitement, rolling throughout the presentation. Even as diverse as it was, it had my attention the entire time.
Yeah, and with Switch, even if I'm not excited about a game per se, I may be excited about it coming to Switch because it helps the platform overall. And I felt like this direct really was a testament to that. There was games I'm not that interested in, but I may support them, and I'm gonna be following their Switch port because when a game comes to Switch, it's instantly more interesting than when it's on PS4, Xbox One, or PC because of that handheld aspect.
I think you hit the nail on the head with that.
Yeah.
As a PC player, every time outside of what I play on Nintendo, seeing The Witcher 3 come to the Switch was interesting. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm going to support that because I want to know how the hell they did it.
Totally. And even if you've played a game before, you might want to pick it up again because it's on Switch.
Yeah, I thought a perfect example of that was Dragon Quest XI-S, where it's getting all this extra content on Switch. And that's not a franchise that I've ever been super interested in, but they put together this really awesome trailer, showing off what makes the game great and what specifically makes it great on Switch. And they aired that trailer immediately after revealing that the main character from it's going to be in Smash Bros. So it was this awesome hype moment, of this character's coming to this super popular Nintendo franchise, and also you should buy the game that they're in because it's pretty sweet too. So I thought that was a really good move by them in terms of just putting those announcements back to back.
Yeah, very strategically planned.
So we haven't really talked about particularly most hyped moments yet, but I know you asked that, and I got to talk about Banjo. I mean, because even though we were all super excited throughout the Direct, we all kind of had this feeling, or at least I did, which it was think there's going to be a really big announcement at the end. I kind of had an inkling that it was Banjo, I don't know why, I just felt that. And then when it happened, I just felt like it was the cherry on top of this awesome Direct that they had. Yeah, I'm just super excited about Banjo coming to Smash, and the way they presented it was perfect.
Yeah, they did that hilarious fake out first.
They actually faked me out.
Oh, yeah, I think all of us in the room were like, what the hell is going on? No, why would you do this? Come on, you got to give us something.
Yeah,
and then
seriously.
That was almost too out of the Iwata playbook that was, just one more thing, or, Reggie preparing one more thing close to the end of a presentation. And I think that was kind of their way to a little bit maybe modernize it. I don't know, but it was just a very Nintendo way to do it.
Yeah, it had that charm that you expect from them. And, that was also one of my most hype moments. I mean, you guys were there in the room with me. I was very excited. But they followed it up immediately with the arguably an even more hype moment with announcing that, oh yeah, by the way, Breath of the Wild has a sequel in development, and here's this super creepy trailer with a living corpse Ganon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely pooped my pants on that one.
Seriously.
I don't tend to steer towards RPGs or, stuff that has a lot of, stats or things to monitor. That just, I don't know. I've said this time and time again, my brain just immediately turns off when a situation happens like that in a game. And there's got to be something else to it to really grab my attention. And that's, has been Zelda for a long time, that's managed to marry both these concepts of the exploration and, action, but also, having these role-playing elements to them. And I dumped so many hours into Breath of the Wild, and to see, kind of the Majora's Mask thing happen again, I was like, okay, I can do this. Hell yeah, I'm ready for the next sequel. And I thought it was interesting how they followed it up with talking about how they had so many ideas for DLC that it turned into this. So that was even more intriguing to me too.
They've even said, this the Breath of the Wild sequel is going to be darker than Majora's Mask, and I think that aspect of it is really exciting because we're all I've been replaying Breath of the Wild because I just want to. Lately, I have been just because I want to be back in that world, and I think there's so much more to explore, and them promising a sequel that's going to be darker. Just from what we've seen, it's going to have that similar art style. I just think it's going to be that Majora's Mask to what we've already seen from Breath of the Wild, and I really can't wait.
Yeah, that interview where they mentioned Majora's Mask was just music to my ears, because I may not have played that game as many times as like an Ocarina of Time or Link to the Past, but it's just got such an incredible atmosphere to it, and it's so unique compared to other Zelda games. So if they can capture a little bit of that magic, but with the incredible game world and physics mechanics and everything that we've come to expect from Breath of the Wild, then yeah, sign me up. I'm totally in for that.
So I'm going to say something totally blasphemous, but
Bring it on.
I have never completed Ocarina of Time. I've
Really?
played, yeah, I've watched other people play. I've played bits and pieces. I even the 3DS remake that they did not too long ago, jumped into that, and that was, and I played a little bit of Majora's Mask. And so instead of, like Aric was saying, he jumped back into Breath of the Wild, I held off a little bit, and I was like, what, I have some stuff to take care of on my list here. So I'm currently playing back through Ocarina of Time just to, not only jog the memory from the pieces that I have played, but to finally just say, okay, I'm going to sit down and finish this like about damn time.
Yeah, it's one of those just monumental titles where you kind of feel like you have to beat it just because it's so important to the culture of gaming.
Right.
So another sort of darling for me in this Direct was Luigi's Mansion 3, because we hadn't really seen much of it before the Direct, and then I was blown away by the trailer, honestly. I felt like they nailed everything that, Luigi's Mansion's fans were hoping for, with kind of a return to form, but bigger and better, and then they went beyond the call and delivered more than that, in my opinion. What did you guys think of the trailer we got?
So the one thing that I think they did to, so I thought, okay, so we thought the game was in peril. We thought things were not going right. We, maybe thought it was going to be pushed out further, and we weren't going to see. I mean, there was very scarce news surrounding it. I mean, everything else, we kind of got hints at, but to have them show the trailer and then give us a little bit more and then be able to play it, kind of helped me, kind of realize, the elements that they were adding to it and building up from the previous two titles. And I don't know, it was kind of an assurance thing for me to reassure me that, yeah, I am going to buy this game. This is what I enjoyed, playing it previously. So, I mean, it wasn't so much as, the hype around it. I was just like, okay, thank God that things are going well, that they can show a trailer.
It's real.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't particularly interested in Luigi's Mansion 3, before the Direct, but then they had that trailer, and I thought the trailer was really fundamental in that it introduced so many new ideas in 3 or 4 minutes, and it did it so well, like the slam, the suction shot, Luigi, like all these new elements that we got a clear idea of from such a short trailer. And the trailer had this comedic flavor to it that I just love.
Aside from also all the awesome new mechanics they introduced in that trailer, I was impressed by the diversity of environments, because like the whole thing takes place in a hotel, so it could have easily just looked monotonous and floor after floor, kind of like, maybe a color swap but not much else. But no, they showed off like a castle with like a Knights of the Round Table thing, and they showed off like a forest with this big creepy wooden door with symbols on it, and they showed off like one of the floors is a movie set. So they're packing all kinds of interesting stuff into this mansion, or this hotel, I guess. So yeah, I think it's going to really deliver both in terms of quality and quantity.
Definitely. It's probably my most hyped game from E3. That's partly because I went on with it, but the trailer itself was pretty amazing. And I thought it just perfectly encapsulated what Luigi's Mansion 3 feels like from a gameplay perspective from playing it.
And that's something, just speaking to Nintendo, I guess, is, I play so many games that are not on a Nintendo console, but to see them, once again, come back and have that charm, that comedic value, the world building with, it's not an expansive open world experience. It's set in a hotel, and he has a vacuum as a his main weaponry. But that's just the Nintendo's way of doing those types of games, and is one reason why I have been purchasing Nintendo consoles day one, is because they continue to hit this sense of charm, or what it is that I've grown to love about the games that they publish and develop. But this is just once again calling back to that and continuing to do their thing.
Yeah, it kind of reminds you of why you fell in love with games in the first place as a kid, to me.
100%.
And speaking to that effect, another highlight, I think, was the Link's Awakening remake. So I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into hands-on impressions, but just from the trailer, I was pretty impressed with the whole Dungeon Maker idea. I thought that was pretty cool, where you can kind of collect rooms as you go through the game and then assemble them into dungeons for your friends to play. So that's something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, the Dungeon Maker gives us a glimpse into what a Zelda Maker full-on could be, which would be a promising, awesome experience, I think. And that's a game that Nintendo very well could make in the future, if this does well and if fans like this new feature. But the trailer itself, just stunning, gorgeous. The art style is amazing. I think we're all fans of it. I don't know I haven't talked to many Zelda fans that aren't fans of the art style of this remake.
Yeah, there was like a little bit of backlash with the first trailer, but I think the majority of people were overall charmed by it. It was just an angry vocal minority, throwing mud around.
That screams the loudest.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm like, how could you not like this art style, you soulless potato? Like, this is beautiful.
So cute.
Yeah, and I guess I understand the hate towards the art style from the initial reveal of the game, but this trailer had so many environmental looks at it. Like, we saw so many trees and mountains and just environments from the game that we're going to be playing in, and I think it looks beautiful.
Yeah, and just looking back to all the Zelda titles, look how diverse each one has been. I mean, Wind Waker and Link Between Worlds. I mean, that's the one thing I was trying to remember. Was there any sort of backlash or negative comments on Link Between Worlds for its art style? I don't remember.
I mean, there must have been some, because the Zelda community just loves complaining, but I still think it was mostly positively received.
Okay, yeah, I just couldn't remember if initially it was kind of the same grouch fest of people, but I don't know what it is as of late, but I've just noticed more and more, just the negativity, or maybe it's because more change.org petitions are coming out. I don't know.
More people are on Twitter these days.
I need to start muting more people is what I need to do.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So speaking of adorably cute games, we finally got a really good look at Animal Crossing New Horizons. But unfortunately, it's delayed till March 20th. Is that right? March 20th, 2020?
I believe so, yeah.
But Nintendo said the main reason behind that was that they needed more time to polish, and they didn't want to disrupt the work and family life. So basically, they didn't want to have excessive crunch like you hear about with a lot of these other big companies, making people work 60, 80-hour weeks for weeks on end to get a game out in time. So it's a little sad that it's delayed, but I think it's a pretty justifiable reason to do so.
Yeah, so I've never actually played an Animal Crossing game. I mean, I've dabbled in some before, but never really played through one fully. And just looking at New Horizon, it seems like what I expected. It seems like Animal Crossing on Switch. It's modernized visually, and from a gameplay perspective, it looks like it offers more than New Leaf or any of the other games. But just as an outsider, I'm really excited to just hang out kinda and play in the Animal Crossing world on Switch and do whatever and rack up hours and hours and hours in that game.
Yeah, I have two comments. One, this is kind of keeps together the collective Nintendo community. It's like, I love Nintendo for these reasons and I play these games, but it doesn't mean I also don't want my fellow Nintendo brethren to also get what they want. And I think that's, again, one of those things that Nintendo is able to feed the many mouths of their community and say, like, okay, this game's for you, this may not be for you, and I'm still excited for those people to get Animal Crossing. The second comment I have is I see this trend happening more and more now, especially post E3, that a lot of companies are referencing crunch, the avoidance of it, to delay games. I mean, we just saw it with Cuphead, the last DLC, the last Delicious Course. Do you think that, and when I see Nintendo say it, I'm like, okay, they're probably legit on this, because they have such a history of having games not ready until they're ready. But is this just something that I'm receptive to, or do you guys feel like more companies are using crunch as a reason for delays?
Do you mean like are companies just sort of cynically pretending that they're avoiding crunch when they delay a game as opposed to like actually caring for the employees, or am I misunderstanding?
That's kind of, yeah, like I don't know if it's like legitimate, maybe it is, but maybe it's because more attention has been brought to it. But I just hear more and more companies as of late referencing crunch as the reasoning for, a delay.
I like to think that Nintendo is wholesome in their response and actually is delaying this game for the reason of better conditions, for the developers. But it does seem, I don't know, I don't really want to speculate on that because there's really no information other than like what they've said. But it's a really hot topic right now, and I'm not surprised that Nintendo came out and said that that's the reason they were delaying Animal Crossing.
Yeah, it definitely puts a positive spin on an otherwise negative headline.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I know Masahiro Sakurai, he's infamously just overworks himself to the point of hospitalization, and it's rough, but he has himself said that, like, with the last Smash Bros, for example, that he was basically pressured into working less overtime because they were like, hey, this is too much. So yeah. I like to hope that Nintendo is actually being sincere in this instance.
Yeah, and so in those cases, I'm like, okay, fair enough. Like, avoid hospital, please.
Were there any other like major games you guys wanted to touch on?
I mean, we haven't really talked about Astral Chain. I don't have much to say other than it looks really fantastic, and I think them showcasing it in the Direct was solid.
Yeah, that's one of those games where I'm kind of with you guys on the whole. This isn't for me, but I'm super glad it's on the platform because it's, a genre that might not otherwise be addressed, and it's from a studio that people really love, so it brings some clout to the system. So I like watching Platinum's, hack and slash style action, but probably won't be picking it up. Glad to see other people can.
See, I'm this game is for me. When I look back at Mad World, Anarchy Reigns, Bayonetta, even the Ninja Turtles, it was I think 4-player co-op one.
Something in the Shadows.
I forget which one, but it came out in like I just totally dug the art style, and that's once again kind of reflected in Astral Chain and just what they're building. I don't know, I just have always found those types of games a lot of fun for me, like wiping out like 50 enemies on screen or running through stressful situations where you're working out new combos, trying different movesets together, and that's the challenge for me. I guess the same way somebody loves the challenge of a JRPG. But that's the kind of challenge I like, and this is the type of game for me.
All right, you guys ready to move ahead to our E3 show floor impressions?
Yeah, I think that's all I have to say about the Direct.
All right. So after the Direct, pretty much as soon as Nintendo's show ended, actually, we headed over to the LA Convention Center, and then we had 3 days to go hands-on with a lot of the games we saw in the Direct. So what was the first game that you guys made a beeline for? Let's start with Aric.
Well, I wouldn't say I made a beeline for it, but the first Nintendo big game that they showed off that I got my hands on was Luigi's Mansion 3. And I mentioned it earlier, but the new features are just incredible. I came away so impressed. So the new mechanic of slamming enemies, it adds a level of fluidity, and you're able to just kind of like, it's almost like you're racking up combos, taking out the ghosts in the small environment. And because the stages are so small, it's really fun to do, and it adds some complexity to the combat that I dug.
It's also just super funny too to see Luigi slamming ghosts around.
Yeah, seriously, and watching their health go out, it's really funny.
And they flail around.
Or completely tearing the hair off a rat. That was
oh yeah,
the standouts.
Yeah, and an aspect of Luigi's Mansion I came away from that I noticed from the demo I played was that each room you go in appears really desolate, and it doesn't seem like there's going to be much in it. But as you explore and walk around the room and turn into Luigi and do different things, you realize that each room kind of has these layers to it, and it makes for a really puzzle-heavy game, which I really, really dug.
Yeah, that was basically my biggest takeaway from it, is how focused it is on environmental puzzle solving. Like, oh, this brick is slightly askew. Let's see if I can, suck it up with my vacuum and open up a secret passage behind this wall. That kind of thing.
Right, yeah.
They actually said, like, in an interview, that's part of the reason why they chose to make it in a hotel, because they wanted to get complex with, secret passageways and puzzles and, like, solving things across multiple rooms. And they thought it would be hard for players to keep everything straight in their heads. So by using a hotel, it's like if you're in room 202, then you automatically know that directly below you is room 102 and directly above you is room 302. So they can get more creative with the puzzle solving that way.
Really cool.
They really seem like they're living up to it just based on the 15 or 20 minutes or so I got with the game.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there's 2 games that did that very well in the past, and Death Squared. That was like one of the early Switch games. I think it was a port from other platforms. And then this Xbox 360 game, I don't know why, but it reminds me of Elo Milo. The very simplistic puzzle games. And when you look at the beginning of a puzzle, you're like, this seems really simple. But then you start to uncover so many more things in different ways to move about the level before reaching the actual end to it. And I just thought... that's mirrors what you guys said, just about looking at a simple room, and then discovering 15 different things about it and uncovering all of them, and it's just one simple room. And just that concept, I love that. That's like one of the types of games that I like to play, to just like, oh, I can do this, or oh, this is how you solve X, Y, and Z. So I just thought that was really cool to see.
Yeah, like rewards your curiosity.
Yeah, you'll take control of Luigi and go through spikes and have to go up an elevator and then switch to Luigi and use your... it's just like there's a lot of layers to it that the first 2 Luigi's Mansion games didn't have, that I think just, from like the 20 or so minutes I've played of it, this game is going to have a ton of that.
Yeah, and like I was, making fun of the rat earlier, but just like some of the unique polish to things, like when you deploy Luigi, or, when you can put your plunger on things and then pull off doors. Like one of them was a giant barrel, and it was the lid to it that you could suction off, and just, the little things like, making Luigi stand there while you blow the fan and lower the elevator with the other. Just the animations through each individual action is something that, I found, just that Nintendo touch to everything, and just, like it should look like this, and holy crap, I look on screen and this is what's happening. So it was just a little bit of finesse behind it.
Yeah, for as weak, apparently, the Switch is a very underpowered console compared to its competitors, but for as weak as it may be, it can run some very pretty games, and this is an example of that. One thing I do want to note, so recently Nintendo unveiled the Luigi's Mansion box art, and the detail in Luigi's hat in the box art, I feel like, is further evidence of just how good they want this game to look. Like his hat, the threads in it look so detailed. You should look it up. This game is gonna look pretty, and I'm very excited for it.
Nintendo really knows how to get the most out of their art styles.
That's the same care that they took with all the recent Yoshi titles too, the Crafted World and all that. Just kind of choosing an art direction and an art style, and then delivering that in game, and it plays and looks how it should.
Yeah, but it's not realistic, but they have their own styles, and they all work.
So Greg, what was the first Nintendo game you got the chance to play?
I'm trying to remember, because the majority of the things that I played at the show were on other platforms and PC.
Sure.
And I think the first was, it might have actually been Luigi's Mansion 3. I can't remember if it was that.
Alright, tell us what you liked about it.
Or if it was Ultimate Alliance. But
why don't you give us your thoughts on Ultimate Alliance?
I am just so, again, like that same, beat 'em up combo moves, the ultimates that were shown, and even at that, just staying true to the Marvel, not even the Marvel universe itself, but mostly the source material, the original X-Men comic book hero costumes. That was the thing that I wanted to see most, that I wanted to see, since I was a kid. That's why, I still have so many X-Men games, in my retro collection, is just because, I grew up loving the animated show and collecting the cards, and sometimes I would catch the comics and stuff, but I always wanted that X-Men experience as a kid, and this is adult me wanting something from my childhood, and it kind of hits on all those points, and then further brings in characters I was unaware of as a kid, like Jessica Jones and Iron Fist that we saw, and then I never really was introduced to Deadpool up until recently, and I don't know, like the last 10 years. So just seeing kind of all that come together in the style of game that I want, and for it to play so well and bring all those characters, Venom and Thor, and it just got me. And again, I said this, I wrote a post about it on Nintendo Enthusiast. I was way more excited for Ultimate Alliance 3 than the Avengers game from Square.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really seen much from the latter, whereas, with Ultimate Alliance, Nintendo has shown us a ton of, what they've got, and they, had it available to go hands-on at E3 as well.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't even care about that game now. Like, all I want is Ultimate Alliance 3.
And especially because Switch is, it's got so many party-style games, it's a great one to play with friends and family, so getting Marvel Ultimate Alliance as an exclusive and then having it be, just another awesome, like, party beat-em-up experience on Switch, it's a good fit.
Yes.
And coming right after Avengers Endgame, like, you can't ask for much more than that.
Yeah, I was about to say, Marvel's Avengers has a more serious tone to it, whereas Ultimate Alliance has a fun, upbeat, kind of like arcadey style that I just love, and I feel like that's even like reflected in the art style and the colors. Like it's a lot more colorful than Marvel's Avengers, and it being a Switch exclusive is kind of like, it's like the Switch Marvel game, and I feel like it's going to do a good job sales-wise, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, and I just saw Far From Home today, and it's just like, even just seeing that and the kind of the comedic take that or the comedic tone that movie has was like, I don't know, it's like just feeding back into everything that I've grown to love about Marvel characters, and just seeing it, even get me more excited for this type of experience here in a couple of weeks.
Greg was hype enough about playing as X-Men characters that for pretty much the rest of the week back at our Airbnb in LA, we were watching the original X-Men cartoon show at night.
It's so good!
Yeah, we binged the X-Men cartoon.
My childhood summed up.
Oh, hell yeah.
So for me, the first game that I made a beeline for was Link's Awakening, and I think that was a popular destination for people because it was like one of the longer lines, and how it actually worked, at least on day one. I think they might have reorganized things later, but everybody lines up in the Link's Awakening line, and that takes them just into the general Nintendo section, and you could play Link's Awakening, but that was a whole separate line on top of the first line, or once you're in the Nintendo section, you could play literally anything else. And like, some of the games didn't even have lines, whereas the Link's Awakening line was like another hour, an hour and a half after that. But I would say it was worth the wait. The first thing I noticed, when I came in there, is they had all of the demo stations set up with like these awesome dioramas, like showing off Koholint Island, like the villages you'll come across the game, and the dungeons and all that sort of thing. So they did a really awesome job of immediately like immersing you in this experience that you're about to have. Like, they're playing the music over the speakers and everything too. That was a really cool experience. I think Nintendo in general did a good job with like setting the mood for their games with all their various sections. They kind of have themed areas.
Yeah, I felt the past couple of years they've completely nailed their E3 show floor. Whereas I remember early on it felt so stiff sometimes in there, but I just felt like in the past couple of years they've completely embraced what it is to be a Nintendo fan and give it to the fans that are there on the show floor that want to, like, oh my god, it's so cute, I want to touch it, and like, here, you can go play it and look at these cool setups, these dioramas that we have.
Yeah, you start playing the game itself, and it's it's that same visual style where it feels like you're in a diorama once you start playing the game, and it's like we've discussed already earlier. It's just a beautiful art style. All of the NPCs, I think, just have a lot more personality than they did before. Like they've got these cute little animations and cartoon or almost clay animation looking faces and everything. There's like more detail in their houses. Like the alligator has a hammock now that he can lay in and stuff. So it's just, I'm upset that chances are it'll probably be a $60 game, and then I'm absolutely gonna pay that much and play it anyway because it's that adorable.
Yeah, well, going back to what you guys mentioned about the presentation of the demo itself and how they kind of set the atmosphere, 2017 was my first E3, and so that was when it was all Breath of the Wild theme. So that's what I was first accustomed to. And then last year was very Smash Brothers heavy, and then there was a few other games. This year I felt like each big game had its own individual section. Like Luigi's Mansion, there was that whole kind of thing that you had to walk in, and it was kind of creepy and dark. So they nailed it in that aspect. And like you're saying about Link's Awakening, it feels just a lot more lively than the original game. It feels like they just took it and modernized it graphically, but from a gameplay perspective, and also just like gave it such charm. A charm that I can't really articulate.
It's like they gave every little bit and piece of like a section of the level that you're in life. They added just a little bit of twinkle here, and
it does feel like
very
that.
Technical terms we're using here. Twinkle.
I was gonna make a movie reference to Spider-Man, but you know what? I won't.
No spoilers.
But no, and Aric's exactly right. I mean, the good years he got, because when you look at even how they presented Smash, the focus was to make the focus of the show floor was to show off the competitive of Smash. They embraced it. The same thing with Luigi's Mansion. They had this like spooky hotel area that you could enter, and the bellhops, were wearing that same attire, and they just they know how to kind of embrace what they're going to show and then pivot and lean into it on the floor to get people, excited about what they're about to see, but also, I don't know, just kind of reflect what the game has in store for them.
So going back to Link's Awakening, Ben, did you feel like there were any gameplay hiccups during your demo? Because I feel like talking to others that played it on the show floor, there were a few.
It wasn't like anything that was significant enough that I felt like it really impacted the gameplay, but there was frame rate slowdown at a couple points. And then this isn't so much a performance issue as it was just a stylistic choice, but they kind of make the edges of the screen all around a little bit blurry, and it's supposed to just sort of fit into that whole dream aesthetic, but I found it a little distracting. It's not like anything that's going to make or break the experience for me, but I did find it a little bit distracting.
See, I didn't even notice that.
You must have been just like laser focused on the center of the screen at all times.
I was too busy watching the frame drops.
Oh, yeah. So you had pretty significant problem with that?
Yeah, I remember, and I think I talked about this on a video on Nintendo Enthusiast YouTube when we were discussing it. Just I was slashing through the grass, and, I was appreciating everything stylistically about the level, but I did notice, once I was going buck wild and hacking everything in sight and hitting enemies, that there was some pretty significant frame rate drops. But seeing how Nintendo again polishes before they release, and outside of Smash, very, very selective updates. And so, I mean, it's a demo. Like, I get that, and I'm sure the final product's going to be very well put together.
Yeah, I'm optimistic about that too. They've still got a few months left, so.
I don't think anybody really feels like the game's going to come out and have bad performance issues. It was just kind of interesting to see that, like, when you did get in the grass, the frames did drop here and there, and that's something that they do need to fix.
Why is it always the grass, man? Remember Breath of the Wild had the same thing.
I know, seriously. It's just environments.
Especially when there's weather effects, too.
Yeah.
Alright, so moving on to another game. Did you guys get a chance to play Pokemon?
I was just about to say, we haven't really talked about Pokemon, and I did.
It's a big title not to talk about.
Yeah, seriously. So I did get to play, and although it feels like, Pokemon, there are some issues that I have. It feels a bit too easy in the sense that you go through So how the demo worked was it was just Nessa's water-type gym. So you had 15 minutes, I think it was 15 or 20, to get through it and defeat her. And if time ran out, time ran out. Once you got through the part where there's a lot of trainers in the gym, you got the option to heal your Pokemon. And I don't think this was just tied to the demo. I think the full game is going to offer players a chance to heal their full party before taking on the gym leader. And that's one thing that we haven't seen in many Pokemon games before, and if that is the case, which I do believe it is, it adds a level of easiness to it, and it takes the stakes out of it. You get through the whole gym just to face the leader with, maybe a couple Pokemon, or you have to heal your team, or just strategically think about it. Now they're handing players the option of having a fully rested team, and I dislike that. But the Dynamax battles offer some cinematic elements to it. They make things feel a lot more grand. They just add kind of like general intensity to the Pokemon battles. But other than that, the demo was pretty simple because we didn't get to explore any wild Pokemon or anything like that. But from what I played, it feels like a step in the right direction, but it's going to be too easy, I think.
Yeah, my big concern was just that I didn't get to play the wild area.
Right.
Like, what I played was fine, but the wild area is what I'm really interested in. Like, how is Pokemon going to handle this open world segment? So I was hoping we might get to explore, like, not the full thing, obviously, because, there's just not time in an E3 demo, but, maybe like a little sectioned off area. But no, like you said, it was just a pretty standard gym fight. I thought it was pretty cool, though, that you get to the end of the gym, and normally, the gym leader's standing there, but instead of a gym leader, there's a door. And then you open the door, and you get to walk down this long hallway that opens up into a big stadium full of cheering fans. So that was actually a pretty cool moment. And then, like you said, there's the Dynamax battles where your Pokemon get, 50 times their normal size and everything, and it makes for a cool cutscene. But I'm glad that they're keeping it localized just to gym battles, and then when you partner up with people in the wild area to take on wild Dynamax Pokemon, because those animations take forever for the Pokemon to grow big, and if that was something you could do at every battle, oh man,
yeah,
it would
and
take
it has
forever
to
to get through anything.
Some value within the game itself. Like if you could do that every battle, it would take out it would take out how special they are, because I think they're trying to make Dynamax battles this new, fun thing that takes advantage of the Switch hardware. Like, seeing these new battles on an HD screen on a modern console for the first time should have a lot of Pokemon, kind of for the first time. I mean, we had Let's Go, but that was, it looked good, but this is what players want as the real visual step up. And I think Dynamax battles kind of offer that in terms of just, visual aesthetic. Did you get to play Pokemon, Greg?
Once again, I'm going to say something blasphemous.
Here it comes.
I'm actually not a Pokemon fan.
That's not shocking, considering you ranted against JRPGs earlier. So.
I think I love the longevity of the franchise and how much Nintendo's done to keep it as a Nintendo franchise, even though obviously Pokemon Company's totally different from Nintendo, but just to see that each iteration keeps getting better and has some fan service behind it. But I completely missed the boat when the show was people were hyped about it, and then getting the games, and I don't know, it just kind of missed me on that one. But it's funny because down the road I picked up some RPG titles, like Ni no Kuni was one of my favorite franchises, and to see it grow into what has become, the art style and things like that. But I mean, I don't know, I wish I could get into it and have the enthusiasm for it, but it's not my thing, man.
But hey, that's what's great about this year for Switch and the coming years, is that there's something for everyone. So even though you're not a Pokemon fan, 15 million other people are going to buy it.
Yeah.
So one new thing I noticed, Aric, I'm not sure if you saw this, but trainers can spot you at an angle now. You don't have to be just in the four directions.
Yeah, I did notice that, and I thought that's a great new tweak they made. I mean, the idea that it's limited to these straight lines of sight feels so archaic from a game development perspective. So making that change was something that was so necessary. I didn't even think about it. Like when that happened in the game, I'm like, wow, I didn't think that this change. I didn't even think about this change, but it's a welcomed update, I think.
It's gonna upset speedrunners, I'll tell you that, because one of the hardest things they have to deal with is getting past, trainers that spin in a circle, trying to get past them without triggering fights, and they're trying to save time, and that's gonna be way harder now.
Oh yeah, true. Good point.
So that's all I had for like big Nintendo games that I played. I played Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2, but I didn't have like a ton of thoughts on that other than it's fun to smash things as Thor. But I spent some time at the Indiecade area too, and one of the games that stuck out to me there was called Neo Cab. So it's definitely a really niche title. It's not going to be for everyone, but I think it's probably going to be up my alley, at least based on the 15 minutes or so I had with it. It's set in a sort of cyberpunk future. No, it's not Cyberpunk 2077, but it's no Keanu Reeves in this one. But it's a really like narrative and decision heavy thing where like your choices are gonna impact the plot, that sort of thing that you might expect from like well, never mind, they're not around anymore. I won't say their name.
Say their name,
but but it's a deeply introspective game. Like you're a cab driver basically in a world where some tech giant has put almost all cab drivers out of business with self-driving cars. I'm sure that's not a shot at Elon Musk. And so you kind of have to like you interact with the people that you pick up, and you have to make sure that you don't run out of energy for your vehicle, and that you don't like annoy people too much that they give you a bad rating and make you lose your job. But it's not just like a taxi driving simulator. You're learning more about this like weird dystopian city where everyone's augmenting themselves with like just all kinds of like robot parts and stuff. So it's really focused on the human experience and like what it means to be human in a world where everyone is where like transhumanism is a thing, where the body isn't really the limit of what it means to be a human. And then unfortunately I had to stop around this time, but towards the end of like the demo I played, your best friend goes missing under like really shady circumstances, and so the rest of the game then is about sort of investigating and finding out what happened to her. So it's one that I'm intrigued after 15 minutes, and I'm definitely going to pick it up when it comes to Switch. Did you guys get a chance to play any other like smaller games or non first party stuff that's coming to Switch?
Yeah, a title that stuck out to me. I went hands-on with Sayonara Wild Hearts. So it's pretty much an endless runner game, but it's like a pop album. It's like the endless runner, but it doesn't feel like an endless runner.
Is it like rhythm based at all, or?
It is rhythm based. So yeah, each stage is a song, and it's basically it's rhythm based. Each stage is a custom song. It kind of combines like K-pop with like J-pop with modern like R&B with like 80s synth techno. It's an incredibly musical game, and I had no idea what it was going in, but I gotta say, Sayonara Wild Hearts is on my radar now.
How about you, Greg? You get to try out anything a little more off the beaten path?
I unfortunately did not. The rest of my time was spent with stuff coming to PC, and but I guess I could kind of tie this in. So post E3 though, I did play 1980X. And it's releasing on Switch down the road, and same with PS4. But I mean, I love indie titles. They've always held a special place in my heart, just to see what people create. And I'm kind of sad that it didn't come to Switch first, because it seems like the perfect Switch title, being that there's so many retro callbacks in it. Even games like what was that one? It was a rhythm-based game that was like retro-styled and had a massive soundtrack. And I did the review for Switch. I don't remember. Old School Musical, I think it was.
Yeah.
But
okay.
Just that
I
same.
remember that.
Yeah, I always love that kind of art style and the callbacks, but this one is very narrative-driven, and it's talking about the main character of the kid's life, and I don't know how much you want me to go in depth, but I think Nintendo fans are gonna it's going to resonate with Nintendo fans, and they're going to appreciate where it's coming from.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things to look forward to if you're a Nintendo fan based on the Direct and what we got to play at E3. The schedule's packed for 2019.
So one more game I kind of forgot to talk about. So Super Crush KO was this brawler kind of platformer that I checked out. It's coming out on Switch, and it's from the makers of a Graceful Explosion Machine. So kind of a pretty popular indie dev. It's just a really classic brawler, but there's moves like, dodging, punching, double jumping. You can do targeted air attacks. You have a blaster. So it kind of just feels like your classic platformer with beat 'em up elements. It's really colorful as well, and it seems like it's going to be one of those cheaper, smaller, but really worthwhile titles, and I had a great time with it. Super Crush KO was the name of that.
That's always reassuring too, considering how much shovelware is on the eShop, and then you see something with a little bit of polish, and it just that should be the intended use of the eShop instead of kind of where its current landscape is, I guess.
Yeah, it's always nice and refreshing to see like quality small games as opposed to like you said, shovelware.
Yeah, I was hoping to see more indies at E3. I think, in the past, like, Sony would have a big section and Nintendo would sometimes have a section, but this year it was mostly, just localized to that Indiecade section, but there are still a few gems in there, so hopefully we see a little more of those games kind of making their ways to big conventions in the future. But in general, whether you like indie games or AAA games or whatever, I'm pretty sure Nintendo's got you covered in 2019, and then, going into 2020, where they've got Animal Crossing and a bunch of other good stuff coming. So there's a lot of reason to be optimistic as a Nintendo fan right now.
Definitely.
Is that about all we have to say about E3 this year, boys?
I have one question to ask you guys. How do you feel like E3 as a show itself is doing? And I don't mean judge it, but I mean, it just felt like a weird year because it's smaller in terms of, felt like, with Sony being out, less publishers there overall. There seemed like there was maybe less media there. I'm not sure on that. It just feels like the show is going through a transition phase, but Nintendo seems to consistently take it seriously, and I feel like that's why they succeed every time, or seemingly every time,
Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying. Like a bunch of publishers have pulled out, so it's not quite as much of a trade show as it used to be, but it hasn't really transitioned all the way into like an event for the fans and not the media. So it's kind of in this weird in-between limbo place. But like you said, like Nintendo's just blind to all that. They don't care like who's coming or how many people are coming or what the dynamics are. They're gonna put their best forward, and I think they did this year.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I've said it time and time again. I've seen the ebbs and flows of the show over the course of the years, and I did notice little bits and pieces like walking between the halls and where usually people are fighting over this extra space to show off a game like Abzu, that we've seen in the past. It's now like a coffee stand. But it's like, I don't know, like going to a family party and your favorite cousin's not there, and although it's not the whole reason for the party, it's just an extra layer of fun to have there. And I think that's where like Sony fills that space, is that the show's going to be great regardless. The show's still going to go on regardless of whether they're there or not. But again, like you said, Aric, it just, and kind of mentioned this, there's far less indies, and I think that's kind of where usually in the past where say it's this game's coming out on Switch, PS4, and PC, and maybe Nintendo's not showing it, but if you go over to the PlayStation booth, the indie developers line outside and you can go talk to them and play their game and be like, this is a game I'm probably going to look forward to on Switch or whatever Nintendo platform. And that was not the case this year. You had to go hunt them down wherever they may be, on the floor or in a meeting room. So I just thought that was like it's also that transition year where the other big companies are waiting to reveal their next hardware. I know Xbox talked about theirs, but I think that was just also just coincidentally landing with the year that Sony doesn't show up with, not any other place to check out these indies, and just kind of gave this, I mean, people can swear up and down that the show's dying, but it was just this, again, the ebbs and flows of the years as they go on, and this just happened to be a year that was not as exciting as previous years, but at the same time the floor was still full of people, and there was still booths, and there was still a ton of games to go check out and play. So I mean, that's just my perspective.
People were still waiting 3.5 hours to play a 15-minute demo of the game.
This is true.
That was happening far too often. And yeah, while it kind of seemed like the show floor was less quiet than previous years, this is my third year, so I don't have many years to go off of. But it's really nice to see Nintendo continually taking it seriously and delivering like not only an awesome direct, but also an awesome in-show in-show setup for all the people there. Like, I feel like they really put effort into the people they brought, like every Nintendo employee, whether it was like the PR reps, or the people working the Luigi's Mansion, like the bellhop people. Everybody seemed to be like positive, and it was just overall, I felt like Nintendo nailed it from an overall perspective, I guess.
Yeah, I may be biased, but I feel like Nintendo won E3.
Definitely. I think Nintendo won it.
Yeah, it's as sometimes the community can be so vocal about negatives for games and whatnot. The excitement, even for me, as of lately. So they're doing that Nintendo tour bus that's going all across the U.S. That's going to be in different locations, and they're coming to the state fair in my state. And I've gone to some retro places around town and picked up a few things, and I mean, every single person there knows that Nintendo's coming to town and they're going to be at the state fair and they're going to be there for 3 days. And like, that's just kind of reflective of what I saw at E3 is like, yeah, we may be very vocal about the things we dislike, but we're very vocal about the things we do like, especially when Nintendo makes this extra effort to come out and showcase their games and kind of bridge that gap between me sitting at home versus me going out and being able to play something that was only shown on TV or at the LA Convention Center. So
yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Definitely. All right, well, I think that about wraps it up for this E3 episode. We're going to try to put one out about every 2 weeks, and then if things are going really smoothly and Nintendo provides us with enough news, then we might switch to weekly. But until then, you can keep finding more news on NintendoEnthusiast.com, and you can follow me on Twitter at Erimgard, ERIMGARD. Aric, where can they find you?
Find me on Twitter at Mr. Schweenz, MRSHWEENZ.
And Greg, how about you?
You can find me on Tinder. You can swipe right. I've actually never used Tinder in my life, so I don't even know what that meant. But you can find me on Instagram at enthusiast_Greg, Greg, not a weirdo with 2 G's at the end, or on Twitter at enthusiast_Greg as well.
All right, thanks everyone for listening, and thanks to you guys for joining me.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Oh, thank you.
Until next time. Bye, everybody.
See ya.
Later.